The Vex'nara Galactic Reconnaissance Fleet had developed an entire scientific discipline dedicated to understanding humanity, a discipline that was becoming increasingly frustrating with each passing observation cycle. What began as a routine planetary assessment had devolved into what could only be described as a collective existential crisis for the most logically advanced species in the known universe. Commander Krelax stood before the holographic display, his multiple sensory tendrils twitching with a combination of professional irritation and genuine bewilderment. The data stream surrounding him represented 362 Earth years of continuous surveillance, and each pixel seemed to mock the fundamental principles of rational existence. Analyze the human behavioral pattern, he demanded of the ship's central intelligence system. Cross-reference survival probability metrics with their observed decision-making processes. The AI's response was instantaneous, but almost seemed to carry a tone of sardonic amusement, which was impossible, of course, as Vex'nara AI systems were programmed for pure logical output. Analysis summary. Human species Homo sapiens. Habitat Planet Earth. Solar System, Milky Way Galaxy. Survival probability statistically improbable. Actual survival rate 100% persistent. The detailed reports were a marvel of inadvertent comedy. Humans regularly consumed substances that would obliterate most known biological systems. They constructed habitation zones in locations with regular geological instability. Their medical practices seemed to involve a bizarre combination of scientific precision and what could only be described as ritualistic gambling. Take, for instance, their approach to cardiovascular health. The Vex'nara had documented humans consuming liquid ethanol, inhaling combustible plant materials, and consuming processed fat compounds, all while simultaneously developing sophisticated medical technologies to counteract the very damage they were voluntarily inflicting upon themselves. Zara Kell, the mission's biochemical specialist, had spent 73 cycles compiling a comprehensive toxicological profile of the human species. Her initial hypothesis had been elegant in its simplicity: identify the species' biochemical vulnerabilities and design a targeted intervention. She had reported during the last galactic conference, essentially walking contradictions. Their biological systems simultaneously demonstrate remarkable resilience and inexplicable fragility. Her research had uncovered a particularly fascinating trait. Humans appeared to have developed multiple biochemical defense mechanisms against substances that would terminate most known sentient species. Their liver, a singular organic processing unit, could metabolize toxins at a rate that defied conventional xenobiological understanding. The observation vessels maintained a careful quantum-shielded distance from Earth, utilizing multispectral analysis systems that could detect molecular changes from astronomical distances. These systems had been designed to study civilizations with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. Yet humanity continued to surprise. When the initial reconnaissance team first mapped human consumption patterns, they discovered something truly perplexing. Humans had entire cultural practices built around consuming liquids that would be classified as neurotoxic agents in 98.7% of known galactic civilizations. Their alcohol consumption was particularly baffling. Humans would gather in specialized social chambers called bars or pubs and voluntarily consume liquid compounds that systematically impaired their cognitive functions. More remarkably, they seemed to consider this a form of social bonding. The Vex'nara had long ago eliminated emotional variability from their own species. Their reproduction was a carefully managed genetic recombination process conducted in sterile laboratories with mathematical precision. Humans, by contrast, seemed to reproduce based on a complex algorithm of emotional turbulence, biological impulse, and what could only be described as randomized attraction protocols. Commander Krelax reviewed the latest psychological profile of human leadership structures. Their political systems appeared to be an ongoing experiment in controlled chaos. Leaders were selected through processes that seemed to combine elements of ritualistic combat, elaborate communication performances, and what humans called popularity contests. Krelax dictated into his research log, the most statistically improbable sentient species in recorded galactic history. The elimination plan was taking shape. A biochemical agent so precisely engineered that it could target specific neural pathways with microscopic accuracy. Zara Kell had developed a neurotoxin that would gradually reduce human cognitive and reproductive capabilities without triggering immediate population alarm. What the Vex'nara did not know, what they could not possibly comprehend, was that humans had already survived far worse than anything their carefully calibrated toxins could deliver. Humanity's true strength was not in their physical resilience, but in their utterly unpredictable capacity to adapt, survive, and occasionally thrive in conditions that would terminate any other known species. The stage was set. The plan was in motion. The Vex'nara were about to learn a lesson in humility that would be recorded in galactic archives for millennia to come. The infiltration plan was a masterpiece of xenobiological engineering, crafted with the precision of a quantum-calibrated surgical instrument. The Vex'nara had spent decades by human measurement perfecting a distribution mechanism that would make their neurotoxin appear as nothing more than a mundane environmental anomaly. Jack Reeder would have found the entire operation hilarious, if he'd known about it at the time. At 35, Jack was not what most people would consider a typical human specimen. He worked as a chemical safety specialist for a global beverage distribution company, a job that was equal parts bureaucratic nightmare and scientific detective work. His office, located in a nondescript industrial park outside Chicago, was a testament to his unique approach to life, half scientific laboratory, half personal survival kit. The wall behind his desk was a collage of chemical hazard warnings, bizarre safety incident reports, and photographs that told a story far more complex than any standard corporate biography. There was a picture of Jack standing next to a tanker truck that had somehow survived what looked like a chemical explosion that should have vaporized everything within a 100-meter radius. Another showed him casually drinking what appeared to be a bright green liquid that would make most hazmat teams evacuate an entire city block. His colleagues had long since stopped asking questions. Jack Reeder was less a human being and more a walking chemical resilience experiment. The Vex'nara infiltration team had selected the global beverage distribution network as their primary vector. Their preliminary studies suggested that by contaminating a small subset of water treatment facilities and beverage production lines, they could introduce their neurotoxin with minimal detection risk. Zarakel had spent 117 cycles developing the perfect biochemical agent. It was a molecular marvel, a neurotoxin so subtle that it would cause gradual neurological degradation without triggering immediate immune responses. The compound would slowly reduce human cognitive capacity, reproductive efficiency, and overall systemic resilience. What they didn't know was that Jack Reeder's personal biochemistry was about to become their worst nightmare. The infiltration began on a Tuesday because apparently even galaxy-ending plots have bureaucratic scheduling preferences. 3 Vex'nara agent proxies, genetically modified to appear human, had been strategically placed within key water treatment and beverage distribution networks. Miguel Rodriguez, working the night shift at a major Midwest water treatment facility, was the first point of infiltration. To any external observer, he was just another municipal employee monitoring chemical levels and ensuring water quality. What nobody realized was that Miguel had 6 fingers on each hand and blood that would register as room temperature antifreeze under standard spectral analysis. The neurotoxin was introduced with surgical precision. 0.03 parts per million, a concentration so minute that it would pass every standard human detection protocol. It was designed to accumulate gradually, creating a cascading neurological impact that would take months to become noticeable. Jack Reeder's job was about to become interesting. His morning typically started with what his colleagues called the most dangerous breakfast in corporate history today. It was a homebrew energy drink that contained compounds that would make most chemists weep, a personal recipe developed over years of working in chemical safety. The drink was a lurid orange color, somewhere between nuclear warning sign and radioactive sunset. Its ingredients list read like a chemical warfare manual: synthesized caffeine derivatives, experimental nootropic compounds, and what Jack referred to as secret sauce, a mixture so proprietary that he'd rather destroy his notes than reveal its composition. When the first water samples crossed his desk that morning, most would have seen nothing unusual. Jack, however, had developed a set of detection skills that bordered on the supernatural. He noticed the infinitesimal shift in molecular structure before any computer algorithm could. A slight deviation in the hydrogen bonding. A microscopic variance in the trace mineral composition. To anyone else, it would have been invisible. To Jack, it was like a neon sign screaming something is not right. The Vex'nara had made their first mistake. They had assumed human detection systems were uniform, predictable, linear. Jack Reeder was anything but uniform. As he began running his preliminary tests, the first tendrils of an investigation were taking shape, an investigation that would soon become the most unexpected resistance in galactic history. The aliens watching from their cloaked vessels had no idea what was coming. The first indication that something was wrong came not from sophisticated alien monitoring systems, but from a series of increasingly frustrated communication logs between the Vex'nara infiltration team. Transmission log classified intervention protocol. Operative ZKL neurological degradation markers are inconsistent. Operative Ren-Thor define inconsistent. Operative ZKL humans appear to be metabolizing the neurotoxin as if it were a mild nutritional supplement. Jack Reeder's investigation had moved from preliminary testing to full-scale molecular detective work. His office had transformed into a war room of scientific analysis, with holographic molecular models spinning in mid-air, courtesy of a custom-built quantum interface system he'd developed during a particularly boring corporate retreat. The beverage distribution network was his primary focus. Most people would have stopped at identifying an anomalous chemical signature. Jack Reeder was not most people. His personal history was a testament to biochemical improbability. Born to a toxicologist mother and a chemical engineer father, Jack had essentially been raised in a laboratory. Family stories spoke of his childhood experiments that would have triggered immediate Child Protective Services intervention in any normal household. There was the time he'd accidentally synthesized a compound that temporarily gave the family dog the ability to understand complex mathematical equations. The incident was never fully explained, and the dog refused to discuss the matter in subsequent years. The Vex'nara infiltration team had carefully selected their initial distribution points. Water treatment facilities in major metropolitan areas. Beverage production lines for popular drink brands. Bottled water distribution networks. Their calculations suggested a gradual population impact that would appear as a natural demographic decline. What they didn't account for was people like Jack Reeder. His first breakthrough came during a routine molecular scan. Most scientists would have missed the subtle variation. Jack not only noticed it but immediately began a comprehensive cross-reference analysis that would make most supercomputers look like pocket calculators. The neurotoxin was sophisticated. Impossibly so. Its molecular structure suggested an extraterrestrial origin, something Jack recognized from years of working at the intersection of chemical safety and what could generously be called weird science. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, Jack's primary contact at the Centers for Disease Control, received a call that would change everything. Elena, Jack's voice crackled through the secure line. "We've got something that's definitely not from around here." Elena knew Jack well enough to understand that not from around here could mean anything from slightly unusual chemical compound to potentially alien intervention. "Define not from around here," she responded, already pulling up her secure research terminals. Jack's explanation was a masterclass in scientific detective work. He described molecular structures that defied standard terrestrial biochemical models, trace elements that didn't correspond to any known periodic table entries, bonding patterns that suggested computational complexity beyond current human technological capabilities. The Vex'nara monitoring systems captured human communications with microscopic precision. Their initial analysis suggested confusion, then growing concern. Operative Zara Kell's research logs began to show increasing agitation. Research notes subject population demonstrates unprecedented biochemical adaptability. Neurotoxin metabolization rates exceed all predictive models by 437%. Preliminary human test subjects carefully selected from various demographic groups were showing not just resistance to the toxin, but what appeared to be active improvement in neurological function. A warehouse worker in Milwaukee who had consumed significant quantities of contaminated water reported increased mathematical comprehension and the sudden ability to solve complex Sudoku puzzles. A college student in Austin experienced enhanced memory retention and what her roommates described as freakishly good dart-throwing skills. The Vex'nara had made a fundamental miscalculation. Humans were not just surviving their intervention, they were potentially improving because of it. Jack Reeder's investigation had moved beyond simple chemical analysis. He was now constructing a comprehensive profile of the unknown compound, using a combination of quantum computing, advanced spectral analysis, and what could only be described as scientific intuition. His custom-built analysis rig, a contraption that looked like it had been designed by a mad scientist with an unlimited budget and zero oversight, began generating molecular models that would make most xenobiological research teams weep with joy. The neurotoxin wasn't just a weapon. It was a complex molecular structure that seemed almost designed to be studied. As if someone wanted humans to discover it. The Vex'nara, watching from their cloaked vessels, began to realize something terrifying. Their carefully orchestrated intervention was transforming from a population management protocol into something entirely unexpected. Humanity was not just surviving. They were turning an alien attack into a potential technological breakthrough. And Jack Reeder was leading the charge. The war room, which was actually Jack Reeder's converted garage, looked like a collision between a chemical laboratory and a conspiracy theorist's ultimate fantasy. Holographic molecular models spun in mid-air, interconnected by lines of quantum data that would make most research facilities look like elementary school science projects. Jack had assembled an unlikely team of collaborators. There was Dr. Elena Rodriguez from the CDC, whose official title was Senior Epidemiological Researcher, but who secretly wished she could just spend her days solving impossible scientific puzzles. Marcus Wong, a quantum computing specialist who had been fired from 3 major tech companies for being too imaginative, which in tech speak meant actually innovative. And Sarah Blackwood, a former military intelligence analyst who had an uncanny ability to connect seemingly unrelated pieces of information. "We're dealing with something that isn't just a chemical compound," Jack announced, his fingers dancing across a holographic interface that looked like it had been stolen from a science fiction movie set. "This is a deliberate intervention. Someone or something wants us to notice." The team had been working non-stop for 72 hours. Coffee had long since been replaced by Jack's proprietary energy drinks concoctions that would make most hazmat teams run screaming. Marcus had developed a quantum analysis algorithm that was picking apart the molecular structure of the neurotoxin at a speed that defied conventional computing logic. "Look at this," Marcus said, pulling up a 3-dimensional molecular model that rotated with impossible complexity. "The bonding structure suggests an intelligence behind its design. This isn't random. This is a message." Sarah Blackwood, who had spent years tracking global anomalies, had a different perspective. "Someone wants us to trace this back to its source," she muttered, pinning various global data points to a massive digital map. "This isn't an attack. This is a test." The Vex'nara monitoring systems were experiencing what could only be described as a collective nervous breakdown. Their intervention protocol, a plan developed over centuries of galactic research, was unraveling in real time. Commander Krell Axe watched the human response with a mixture of horror and grudging respect. The quantum communication channels between the infiltration team and their mothership were becoming increasingly frantic. Transmission log confidential. Operative ZKL subject population is not just resisting. They're analyzing the intervention. Command center elaborate. Operative ZKL, they're treating our neurotoxin like a scientific challenge. Some humans appear to be improving after exposure. Jack's breakthrough came during what his team called the 72-hour caffeine-induced quantum revelation, a period of continuous research fueled by substances that would be classified as controlled experiments in most countries. The neurotoxin wasn't just a weapon. It was a complex molecular puzzle deliberately designed to be solved. It's like Jack explained to his increasingly caffeine-addled team. "Someone left us an incredibly complex scientific locked-room mystery, and they want us to figure it out." The counteroffensive strategy took shape not as a traditional defensive maneuver, but as the most aggressive scientific investigation in human history. Marcus developed a quantum tracing algorithm that could potentially track the molecular signature back to its point of origin. Elena began preparing comprehensive biological defense protocols that went beyond standard epidemiological response strategies. Sarah started mapping potential extraterrestrial communication vectors. And Jack? Jack was doing what Jack did best, breaking every scientific rule, while simultaneously rewriting the fundamental understanding of biochemical interaction. His latest experiment involved deliberately exposing various biological samples to incrementally increasing concentrations of the neurotoxin. The results were becoming increasingly bizarre. Cellular structures weren't just resisting, they were adapting, evolving at a rate that defied current scientific understanding. A plant sample exposed to the compound developed increased photosynthetic efficiency. A bacterial culture demonstrated enhanced metabolic capabilities. Tissue samples showed accelerated repair mechanisms. The Vex'nara watched in growing terror as humanity transformed their carefully designed weapon into a potential evolutionary catalyst. Commander Krell Axe's final transmission to the infiltration team captured the growing sense of existential dread. They are not just surviving. They are improving. Retreat protocols are now in effect. But for Jack Reeder and his team, the real investigation was just beginning, and they were going to take this cosmic mystery apart one molecule at a time. The counteroffensive had begun, and humanity was just getting started. The first direct contact was not the epic, world-shattering moment most alien encounter narratives would suggest. It happened in a nondescript conference room at a government facility so classified that it didn't officially exist, located somewhere beneath the Rocky Mountains. Jack Reeder sat at the head of a table that looked like it had been assembled from the most advanced technological components known to humanity. Holographic displays flickered with molecular diagrams, quantum communication traces, and data streams that would make most scientific research facilities look like elementary school science projects. Surrounding him were the most unlikely diplomatic team ever assembled: Dr. Elena Rodriguez, whose epidemiological expertise now extended to potential alien biochemical warfare; Marcus Wong, the quantum computing specialist who looked like he'd rather be debugging code than negotiating with extraterrestrial life; and Sarah Blackwood, whose military intelligence background had prepared her for exactly nothing like this moment. The Vex'nara representative materialized quite literally through a quantum communication projection that looked like a living, breathing holographic nightmare. Commander Krellax was not what humans would consider traditionally intimidating. Standing approximately 1.2 meters tall, with a body structure that seemed to combine elements of octopus, praying mantis, and a particularly angular office chair, the alien looked more like a sophisticated science experiment gone slightly wrong than a potential galactic threat. "Humans," Krellax began, his communication translator rendering his complex series of membrane vibrations into surprisingly precise English, "we require an explanation for your unexpected response to our intervention." Jack leaned back, a half-empty mug of his proprietary energy drink sitting precariously close to several $1 million worth of quantum computing equipment. "You mean," he said with a level of sarcasm that could strip paint, "why we didn't conveniently die when you tried to poison us?" The next 2 hours were a masterclass in interspecies miscommunication, scientific revelation, and what could only be described as the most intense show and tell in galactic history. Jack systematically broke down the molecular analysis of the neurotoxin, revealing layers of complexity that the Vex'nara themselves hadn't fully understood. What they had designed as a weapon was, in fact, an incredibly sophisticated molecular catalyst. "You didn't just try to poison us," Jack explained, pulling up holographic molecular models that danced with impossible complexity. "You essentially gave us a biochemical upgrade manual." The revelations came in layers. The neurotoxin wasn't a simple elimination protocol. It was a complex molecular structure designed to test a civilization's adaptive capabilities. But the Vex'nara had made one fundamental miscalculation about humanity. Humans didn't just adapt. They weaponized adaptation. Elena Rodriguez presented comprehensive biological data showing how human cellular structures had not just resisted the neurotoxin but had actively incorporated its molecular complexity. Entire new metabolic pathways had emerged. Neurological efficiency had increased. Some test subjects were demonstrating cognitive capabilities that bordered on the superhuman. Marcus Wong's quantum analysis revealed something even more startling. The molecular structure contained what could only be described as an information transfer mechanism. It was a test, a challenge, a cosmic entrance exam for potential galactic civilization status. "You weren't trying to kill us," Sarah Blackwood interjected, her intelligence background allowing her to see the broader strategic picture. "You were trying to determine if we were worth acknowledging." Commander Krellax's membrane-like structures shifted in what might have been the alien equivalent of profound embarrassment. The Vex'nara had a long-standing protocol for encountering potential intelligent life. Most species either collapsed or became aggressive when presented with the neurotoxin catalyst. Humanity had done neither. They had turned an attempted extinction protocol into a scientific breakthrough. "Your species," Krellax finally communicated, "defies all standard xenobiological assessment protocols." Jack Reeder smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. It was the smile of someone who had just realized humanity's true potential on a cosmic scale. "Welcome," he said, raising his lurid orange energy drink in a mock toast to Earth. "We're not just survivors, we're improvers." The confrontation was not a battle. It was a scientific revelation that would reshape humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. And it had all started with a seemingly simple attempt to poison humanity's metaphorical wine. The aftermath of the Vex'nara encounter was not what any galactic civilization would have predicted. Instead of a dramatic space battle or a diplomatic crisis, it became something far more mundane and yet infinitely more terrifying to the alien observers: a bureaucratic process. 6 months after the initial contact, the United Nations established the Extraterrestrial Adaptive Response Department, EARD, a government agency that was part scientific research center, part diplomatic mission, and part controlled chaos laboratory. Jack Reeder, somewhat reluctantly, found himself at its helm. "I'm not a bureaucrat," he had protested during the initial appointment meeting. "I'm a chemical safety specialist who accidentally prevented an alien extinction attempt." The response from the UN committee was unanimous exactly. His office became a testament to the bizarre intersection of human ingenuity and cosmic coincidence. Molecular models hung alongside mission logs. Quantum communication devices shared desk space with coffee mugs that looked like they could dissolve most known materials. A framed photograph captured the moment Commander Krell Axe had first materialized in the underground conference room, an image that looked like a fever dream designed by a committee of quantum physicists and surrealist artists. The Vex'nara, for their part, were experiencing what could only be described as a collective existential crisis. Their entire civilization was built on predictive models and calculated interventions. Humanity had just comprehensively destroyed every single one of those models. Preliminary galactic communication channels established through a complex series of quantum entanglement protocols that Jack had helped develop revealed the true depth of their confusion. Classified galactic communication log. Vex'nara High Council transmission: humans are unpredictable. Earth diplomatic response: thank you. We consider that a compliment. The neurotoxin that was meant to be a weapon had become something entirely different. Research teams around the world were exploring its potential applications. Medical breakthroughs emerged weekly. Neurological treatments that had been impossible suddenly became not just feasible, but routine. Marcus Wong, now leading the quantum research division of EARD, discovered that the molecular structure contained what could only be described as an adaptive information transfer mechanism. "It's like," he explained during a press conference that left most journalists thoroughly confused, "they didn't just try to poison us. They tried to upgrade us." Dr. Elena Rodriguez's epidemiological research suggested that human cellular structures had not just resisted the neurotoxin but had actively incorporated its molecular complexity. Entire new metabolic pathways had emerged. Some test subjects were demonstrating cognitive capabilities that bordered on the superhuman. The global scientific community was simultaneously terrified and exhilarated. Commander Krell Axe made periodic communication attempts, which increasingly resembled what could only be described as diplomatic check-ins mixed with what seemed suspiciously like professional curiosity. Their last recorded transmission captured the essence of their newfound relationship. Humans continued to defy all predictive models. Jack's response: "We're working on that. Give us time." The Vex'nara had come to Earth expecting to find a species to eliminate. Instead, they had discovered a civilization that didn't just survive challenges, they weaponized them. In a small laboratory in Chicago, Jack Reeder stood before a molecular analysis station, reviewing the latest research data. The lurid orange energy drink that had become his trademark sat nearby, its composition still a mystery to everyone except its creator. A holographic display showed molecular structures that danced with impossible complexity, a visual representation of humanity's unexpected journey from potential extinction to cosmic recognition. The universe, it seemed, had just been introduced to humanity, and it was going to need a moment to recover. As for Jack Reeder, he was already planning his next experiment. Because that's what humans do.